Hey everybody, it's GobletX, and welcome back to some more Magic Arena, and today I'm going to be playing another quick draft of Dominaria United. You might be wondering where this is coming from, because by the time this video actually gets uploaded, it will probably not be on Arena anymore. I just really needed a break from some of the Lost Caverns of Ixalan aggro nonsense that has been running around, so hopefully you'll indulge me here going back to this old set that might not be on Arena at the time of this upload. Anyways, without further ado, let's just hop back into the Dominaria United format, and we have an incredible pack 1 here. There's King Darien, which is a great bomb rare, 1 a green and white, buffs all your other creatures, and gives you a mana sink ability to buff King Darien and make more soldiers. Card's super busted, and I'm probably just going to take King Darien here, but Knight of Dawn's Light is also incredibly efficient. Cheap first striker that gets buffed up, fits into more decks since it's a mono-colored card. There's also Phyrexian Missionary, which is great graveyard recursion, a 2/3 lifelinker that also picks something up from your grave. This is a really, really good pack, but I'm going to roll with the King Darien and see if we can fit that into our deck, maybe do some green-white token aggro nonsense. And for pack 1, pick 2 here, we see some pretty sweet options. Cards like Talus Lookout are just great value creatures. Cut Down is an incredibly efficient removal spell against small creatures, and Destroy Evil is an incredibly efficient removal spell against big creatures. There's a lot of both in the format. Basically every color in this set gets some decent cheap creatures and some decent big late game cards. There are these cost reduction cards at common that can spit out really big creatures early if you're doing what your color wants to do. So I think both of these removal spells play very well. But since we've started off with King Darien, I'm going to take the Destroy Evil here. Another excellent pack though. I think Lookout, Destroy Evil, and Cut Down are the best cards, and they're all great. For pack 1, pick 3, there's another copy of Destroy Evil here. There's also a Terra Sunder, which we would need to splash a little bit of black to use as a removal, but it is very, very good removal. 1 and a green to exile an artifact or enchantment, and a green, a black, and 2 to exile any non-land permanent. It is really nice, and this set has a lot of great multicolored stuff with the dual lands at common and the domain mechanic that wants you to play as many different basic land types as possible. The dual lands, of course, counting towards that. So for any green-based deck, it is not going to be that difficult to splash, and you can certainly play like 5-color domain-y sort of stuff if you want to. Trying to avoid that a little bit today, since that was the last deck that I played in Dominaria United Quick Draft, so for variety's sake, it would be nice to go for a streamlined 2-color combo, but starting off King Darien, we are already starting in green, which does lend itself to some splashy stuff, so we might still end in that direction. I guess if I really want to force myself to not draft the same deck again, we can take a Balmor here, but strictly trying to win, I think it's the Terra Sunder for sure. And King Darien's a cool enough card, even if I do end up kind of a domain soupy nonsense pile again, I kind of want to stick to the King Darien. Grab our Terra Sunder here. For pick 4 now, we've got Gaia's Might, which is an excellent, excellent combat trick for domain decks, because it does an absolutely massive buff. There's also Phyrexian Rager, which is a great value play, drawing you a card when it hits the board. There's Tolarian Terror, which is excellent in any blue deck in the format. Blue has a lot of really good instants and sorceries, and you can keep that count super high. So this would have been a great card if we went for that Balmor pivot, go for blue-red spells here. But since we stuck to King Darien by taking a Terra Sunder, we probably just grab our green-white dual land here, which is definitely going to help our mana no matter what, and it can help kick Terra Sunder because we're getting another green and white source into the deck. So in order to have your normal 9-8 split of 9 white sources and 8 green sources without any duals, you need 9 forests, 8 plains, something like that. But with a Radiant Grove, now I only need 8 forests, 7 plains, and 1 Radiant Grove, which gives me an extra slot to put a swamp in for Terra Sunder. So weirdly enough, on-color duals also help you splash. So let's grab a Radiant Grove here. For pick 5, we can take another Destroy Evil. Seems like the bots just do not like this card. You can get infinite copies, but I genuinely don't mind it. I'm just going to take another one. There's some really good spell stuff here, though. These are some decent signs towards blue, seeing an Impulse and a Frostfist Strider here. Of course, that Tolarian Terror last pack, but that was pick 4, which isn't that late in the draft. This is starting to get to be a decent sign towards blue, though. If we see cards like this again, I'll probably try to hop on that train, maybe pivot towards blue-red. Yeah, and I don't think any of these green or white cards are that good. The Phyrexian Rager would be solid if we are doing some black splashes with the Terra Sunder, but Battlewing Mystic's really good for blue-red spells. Just blue-red aggro in general. 2 mana for a 2/1 flyer is already a good card, and if you have an empty hand when you play this, you're playing a 3 mana 2/1 flyer that draws you 2 cards when you play it, which is nuts. So let's take a Battlewing Mystic here. Potential pivot towards blue-red spells. Although there's nothing good for blue-red spells here. Haunting Figment's like my least favorite of the instant sorcery kind of creatures. I tend to not try to run it. I do really like Urborg Repossession in grindy decks, though, especially domainy ones. So we'll take Repossession towards the green-white-black pile we maybe have going on. And that's a pick 8 Tachiova. That is just criminal. That is criminal. This card is in incredible win condition once you have 7 lands on board, so you tend to not cast it until you have 6 lands on board. Then you cast this, play your 7th land, immediately have a 3/3 flying haste, and now every draw you have for the rest of the game is great, because lands you draw are 3/3 flyers with haste, and non-lands are still good spells. So Techio was ridiculous, and should not ever be pick 8 of pack 1. Someone should have pivoted onto the Tachiova by now, and I guess that someone is going to be us. And we're going to start heading towards green domain soup, because we have green with a blue splash, a white splash, a black splash off Terra Sunder. Take an Impulse here, it's the strongest card in the pack, so for a while we're just going to take the strongest card in the pack regardless of color, and that'll help us choose our primary, well not our primary, our main secondary color to go along with the green. Green's going to be the core color, but we might be green-blue, splash a bit of white, bit of black. We kind of want to choose 2 main colors, and then just domain splash everything else off of some dual lands. Pick 10's pretty weak. Best card I think is Amplifier for blue-red spells, but we're probably not going that way. Okay. Well, I did say I was seeing some things that could be early signs towards blue-based spell strategies being open, with late Impulses, Battlewing Mystics, and then an Amplifier here, and a pick 11 Balmor, if we were in a player draft pod, would be just the biggest signpost in the universe that you can draft blue-red spells in this pod. So I'm going to be so disappointed if I hop onto this and I get cut, because that would almost never happen in a player draft. Something really weird could happen and you could get cut, but yeah, even Urtai's Scorn is a fine card for a blue-red spells deck. So yeah, pick 13 Impulse, okay. Okay. Maybe we are actually getting that blue-red spells pivot here and playing a different deck. Plenty of powerful domain soup cards going around. Relatively late as well, like that Tachiova. But I was saying earlier, I'd like to do something different than we did last time, and blue-red spells is a very strong archetype. So the way that this format works, it's just such a smartly, cleverly designed set in general. Any quick drafts of Dominaria United are just going to be me gushing about the format, if you haven't realized that by now. Anyways, we're taking Lightning Strike, obviously. But I love how the set is designed where every color is really good at doing like a specific thing. So then the 2 color decks that overlap do these really interesting things. So like, I would say every red and white deck in the format is really good at getting aggressive. Red has a lot of damage and great aggressive creatures, and white's main thing is spreading the board with a bunch of creatures. But blue is really good at being defensive. It's got a lot of good card draw and counter spells, really efficient instants and sorceries and stuff. So like blue and black are the good defensive colors, red and white are the good aggro colors, and green is the great mana-fixing ramp domainy nonsense. So what happens when you get into this 2-color pair where you shove your red cards and blue cards together? You've got all these great defensive cards and card draw spells and stuff off of the blue, and you've got these great little aggro dorks off of the red. Well, you get a sick tempo deck where your game plan is going to be to resolve some cheap evasive threats, and then once you have resolved cheap great little aggro dorks, you just try to control everything your opponent does from that point on. You kill anything that's big enough to block, you counter anything that's scary to you. That is what the tempo archetype is all about. Aggro in the early game, control in the late game to keep your little early game threats on board, chipping away at your opponent. So I just love the design of that, how the colors mesh that well together, and work like peanut butter and jelly, where in a lot of formats they really wouldn't. So let's grab the Lightning Strike here, continuing down our blue-red spells path. Now for pack 2, pick 2, we unfortunately don't really find anything I want to play in that deck. There's a Figment and a Kavu that are fine, but there is a Weatherseed Treaty, which is one of the most busted uncommons for domain decks, because it pulls out whatever basic lands you need, gives you a 1/1, and gives you a massive domain trample swing, so I'm still going to take that, because there's just nothing good for blue-red spells, but I would really rather not go back onto domain. Pick 3, we now have Electrostatic Infantry, which is very good for blue-red spells, getting a +1/+1 counter every time you cast an instant or sorcery. Nice little snowball effect there. There's also the Micromancer, which is pretty great. I think Micromancer is much better in blue-black decks, because black has some really good 1-mana instants and sorceries. Blue-red, it's actually just okay. Like, the best 1-mana instant or sorcery for blue-red decks to pick up is like -1/-0 to a creature, draw a card kind of thing. Nothing super nuts for Micromancer and blue-red, but Electrostatic Infantry is phenomenal here, obviously. Now we can take a blue-red dual land, or we can take a Furious Bellow, and combat tricks do play pretty well with your cards like the Gitu Amplifier, the Balmor, the Electrostatic Infantry, so I don't hate the Bellow here. We really don't need dual lands much in a strict 2-color deck like we're going to end up playing here. Timely Interference is that 1 mana, give a creature -1/-0 and draw a card spell, which plays really well in a deck that is getting plenty of triggers every time you're casting a spell, so we'll take the Timely Interference. Now we have an Essence Scatter, which is one of the great ways that these tempo decks get going. This trades up in mana very often, where your big domain opponents are trying to drop a scary 5-drop creature, and you're like, all right, I'm going to spend 2 mana and just not worry about it. We're going to take an Essence Scatter here over a Protect the Negotiators, and this would be a solid card to try to splash in, but we're going to stick it nice and simple. Take the Scatter for our tempo deck. Pick 7 now, we see another Furious Bellow, a War Brute, Sea Scavenger, and Branch Rider, just not for this deck. We'll take the Bellow here. Pick 8, Goblin Picker, nice little 2-drop creature we can get on the board before we start holding up counter spells, and this can also dig through any mana flood later. I like the Picker. Now we have a Negate, which plays perfectly fine in the format. It doesn't play like super well, but there's a lot of formats where Negate is unplayable. This is not one of those sets. It'll be fine in this kind of deck. Just counter a removal spell or counter a big Planeswalker, or there are some big like artifacts you really need to counter, like a Joda's Codex or something that might show up. That Negate gets good value by countering. Twinferno is really narrow, so I tend to not pick it or run it ever. But it's very fun with Gitu Amplifier and Balmor, give him double strike. I don't think I just take a Figment and get another threat, though. We do get the Micromancer, so we can grab our Timely Interference off that. Now we can take a Salvage Mana Worker, which can hit any random off-color kicker effects we get, if we get any. And now we've got one more pack to go. We just need to get at least 7 playables to be happy here. And Molten Monstrosity might not be the worst card ever. It might actually be kind of playable. So, funnily enough, I don't really like Najal in the blue-red spells deck, because a 5-drop you have to tap out for is not very good. What is so good about this kind of deck is being able to tap out for your cheap threats and hold up interactions. So you really just love these 2-drops like Balmor, Amplifier, and Infantry. I don't really love the Stormrunner, even though it potentially does really scary things once it gets attacks in. It's just not good at holding up mana for instance, so I'm just going to take another Amplifier over it, and it'll probably come back around if we're being honest. So let's take that Amplifier. Now we have Keldon's Strike Team, 3 mana, 3/1 haste to get some damage in, and a really good kicker effect if we throw in the Mana Worker to help get the kicker. Maybe some random duels. It's kind of the only thing this deck could use. Impede Momentum actually does play okay in this deck. I wouldn't say it plays super well, but it plays fine. Actually, Phyrexian Espionage plays well as well. Just some good card advantage that's also an instant or sorcery. I'm just going to take the Espionage here. Pack 3, pick 3. Yep, our domain deck would have been insane. There's a Bortog Bone Rattle, but I think our blue-red spells deck is still going to be fun and still going to be decent. Let's go for another Mana Worker here. Actually, we could Crystal Grotto in some kicker stuff too, because our mana base is really easy. We can use a colorless land a decent amount of the time just to randomly have off-color kickers. Shore Up is really good in this kind of deck to protect your Balmors while also buffing them when you do it. Love me a Shore Up. Pick 5, we run out of cards, we drop a Battling Mystic. That's the plan, and it's a good one. We've also got an Impulse to maybe come back around. If not that, Thrill of Possibility is genuinely good in this kind of deck as well, just not as good as Impulse. Pick 6, our deck is wide open. There's a Tributary and a Gate and a Geyser. We'll go for the Geyser here. Slow those big domain opponents down, bouncing their big spell, making them recast it. Pick 7, another Figment. I've got plenty of creatures right now, though. I think I could just take another duel, get the blue-red here. I guess I only have 21 non-land cards right now. If I play the Mana Worker, I have 22, and we probably want to cut some lands. I guess I could play the Molten Monstrosity, which is a cute kind of combo piece with amplifiers, where we try to cast one really cheap spell to have the amplifier become 3 or 4 power, and then play a Monstrosity for cheap later. I don't think it works out super well that way, though. I'm just going to take the Figment here. Pick 8. I don't think any of these are very good for this deck. I guess Academy Wall does a lot of digging. Well, it sits on its butt. Probably better than Librarian by a little bit, but I'm probably not putting it in the deck. Pick 9, we can take a Najal, or we can try to kick a Protect Negotiators. I guess even an unkicked one is fine here. If we can kick it, it's really good. I already put the Mana Worker in, and we're going to have a Crystal Grotto in as well, so there's 2 random ways to kick this now and then. We're not playing a Plains for this card, but yeah, resolve a couple cards, a couple little cheap threats, and this is counter unless they pay 2, which is not unplayable. And if we can kick it, then it's very good. Impede Momentum is also a playable spell for this archetype, and we wield a Mana Worker, so now we have 3 ways to get our white source. And our black source for Phyrexian Espionage, too. Here's another Haunting Figment. Get that Thrill of Possibility over the Warbrute. I just want cheap cards. Now we can cut the Molten Monstrosity easily. Don't think I'm playing double Negate. Negate is still pretty narrow. Just not unplayable like it is most of the time. Alright, and this is your blue-red spells curve, honestly. Look at that. Look at that. I mean, that's how the archetype plays, and then we cut 3 lands, go to 15 total. Yep, cut another red source. And then just cut our 2 worst cards for this deck. And go to town. I mean, Impede Momentum. Goblin Picker. Sure. Impede Momentum, Goblin Picker. And this is our pile of 2-drops. Alright, here's a look at our final deck list for today. We're on the blue-red tempo spells deck, and as you can see, it's a very interesting archetype where you can go really low curve. We just have a mountain of 2-mana spells here. We're playing 15 lands total. So with this kind of deck, we're planning to resolve some cheap evasive threats, like some cheap flyers like Battling Mystics and Balmors, or maybe some cards that get bigger as we're casting spells like Electrostatic Infantry and Amplifier to get a bunch of damage in early, and we're just going to be using some cheap counter spells and bounce spells to stop the slower decks from resolving anything that can block us, like Essence Scatter, Urtai's Scorn, Protect the Negotiators, Negate, Lightning Strike to clear the path. A lot of ways to keep things out of the way and just jam out for damage before our opponent can resolve all of their spells. So really nice, just blisteringly fast kind of archetype. Love these little blue-red tempo decks in Dominaria United, and we'll see how it plays out for us as we head into the gameplay. Here we are for game 1. I keep the hand. We don't have any great cards to defend right now, but our Thrill of Possibility can dig for some stuff. Dig for one of our really threatening plays. We are probably playing against Domain, seeing our opponent go for a black-white land into a red land. So let's Amplifier holding up a shore up here. Get ready to just get some damage in with combat tricks and cheap spells. Amplifier was exactly the kind of spell we needed to draw here. Find an Impulse. Let's Impulse holding up the shore up, I think. Find another Furious Bellow? Sure. Take that. Jam in for 4. There's the removal spell, and this is why Shore Up is so insane in this kind of deck. Counter the removal and buff the Amplifier. Hit for a ton. They are down to 12 now. We top deck a land for a Bellow. I think they're already dead on board if they don't block right. Or hold up instant speed removal. Looks like they're probably holding up instant speed removal, which will definitely work here. Dang, what do I do now? Probably save the double Bellow for a surprise trick later. Ditch the Figment to draw 2, holding up the Interference. Looking for another land, ideally. Prayer of Binding. That is not good for me. Removal that gains them life is gross. To help stabilize here. Do hit the land. We find a Battlewing Mystic to put a threat on this board. I'd like to play that with an empty hand, so I'm just going to dump a Bellow for damage and scry. I'd like to get the draw 2 off the Mystic. Alright, well. I don't have any 1-drops for this Micromancer, so we're probably discarding it for the Mystic at this point. Jam in for 1. I mean, I guess a 3/3 is bigger than a 2/1 flyer if they're just not going to have anything on board. Let's shuffle that library. Woo! And they're just going to concede. They just did not draw any creatures, I guess. I don't know what those 6 spells were, but they were not what they wanted, and we are now 1-0 heading into game 2. Here we are now for game 2. We got an Amplifier and a Balmor for some threats to resolve here. +1/+0 trample to the whole board. +2/+0 to just the Amplifier. Probably go Balmor and start making a wide board state. To really utilize that effect. We go Mana Worker, then turn 4 we go Impulse plus another 2-drop by impulsing into a land if we don't find another, and we do. I can only cast 1 spell this turn anyway, so let's play the... Ooh, I like the Espionage. Play, actually, Amplifier for maximum chaos and insane amounts of damage next turn against this Domain deck that's probably pretty slow and grindy. Yeah, drop a Deathbloom Gardener. That's going to be slow for sure. I can Lightning Strike plus Impulse and just hit for 1,000 damage here. I guess I can Impulse and see if I draw something that would be better to play than the Lightning Strike, which would be the -1/-0 to a creature draw a card. That would be insane here if I find that off of the Impulse. Get ready to see an absolute murder. So now we kill the Gardener, draw a card, and because of Balmor we're trampling over. Still. Put them down to 10. And still have the Lightning Strike at the ready. There's a Urborg Repossession, gain some life, get a Death Toucher, but I certainly have Trample over here. And you are dead this game. Because the Trample. Down to 9, and I'm going to buff everybody with a Shore Up. And it's too much damage for our opponent to survive. That is 2-0 heading into game number 3. And I guess I should mention while we're at it, I did preface this video saying I was pretty tired of aggro in Lost Caverns of Ixalan. The thing I don't like, obviously I love aggro, I'm playing an aggro tempo deck right now. The thing I don't like is one-note sets, one-note formats, and it feels like LCI has devolved into basically only really quick, streamlined decks, early curves, being like the only way to play the format well. And what is so cool and such a breath of fresh air heading back into Dominaria United is, again, what I was gushing about with the design of the format, that these 5-color domain decks that I'm beating up on, I really enjoy playing those decks as well. And I think they are probably the strongest archetype in the format. Blue-red tempo spells is really good as well. But like, there are really good grindy domain decks. There's blue-red tempo, there's blue-white tempo, and those two decks play much differently. Blue-red being pretty aggressive and blue-white chipping away slowly over time and keeping things under control. There's really good decks at doing like every kind of deck. Aggro, mid-range, control, tempo. All of those are well represented in Dominaria United and very reasonable strategies to play. Don't feel the same about a lot of the sets that have been coming out this year in Magic. So Dominaria United, I don't remember ever loving it this much, but the more I play of the new sets that are coming out, the more I look back on Dominaria United and I'm like, that was actually sweet. Like, a lot of people say it's just a 5-color mush format. The only thing that there is the domain decks. Very untrue. And here we are now for game 3, 2-0 so far. Our opponent is on the play, which will be a little bit of a bummer for us. Obviously, our aggro tempo deck is very favored, getting to be on the play. And our opponent might be on the red-white aggro deck, which is the most pure, traditional kind of aggro deck in the format. And I think that is where Phoenix Chick is the best, because white in this format is really good at dumping out tokens. So white would be really good at providing enough attacking creatures to actually reanimate the Phoenix Chick. That'd be the best color pair for it. And that is what they are playing. There's a mountain into a plains, no dual lands. Also looks like a reason that they would be probably pretty aggressive here. Let's start resolving some mana workers. Just get some nonsense on the board. And having one mana worker out is going to let me protect the negotiators to counter one of their spells and get a 1/1, which would be really strong. So there's the Resolute Reinforcement. So they've got 3 cards on board. Mana worker, solid at blocking these 1/1s at least. There is the Sunlit Marsh, so there is a duel in there. I mean, we've got a Crystal Grotto, so we're one to talk. Pass from here, holding up or protect the negotiators, and if we don't end up casting that, we can negate something or lightning strike something. There's a Banalish Sleeper, which is pretty good for our opponent here. Sack a 1/1 to make us sack a mana worker, so we are going to counter that unless they pay 2. And get a 1/1 at the same time. Now we just get poked by the Phoenix Chick, and we're in a pretty solid spot. I don't think I really need to hold up Lightning Strike here. So let's just cast a Mana Worker and a Figment. Again, just trying to dump our hand out so that when we do kick a Battlewing Mystic, we're discarding basically nothing to draw 2. Just going to not hold up Negate for 1 turn. Red-white does play mostly just a bunch of creatures anyway. Any of their non-creature spells are either removal spells or combat tricks, which they don't really need right now. Ratadrabek, that doesn't do anything unless they draw into more legends, so I'm not really worried about that. But if I am, once I hit 1 more land, actually no, because I have mana workers on board, I can already kill it. Because I can just filter into a red off of a mana worker and pay the 2. Yeah, I can kill it if I need to. For now, let's Impulse. I'm holding up a Lightning Strike or Negate thanks to mana workers, and I get an unblockable attack in with the Figment. I like all of these spells. I think any of these would be good, but let's take the Scatter here. We're definitely playing the tempo control role this game rather than the tempo aggro we've been doing the first couple. This is usually more of how the blue-white tempo decks play in the format. Nice and slow, dig for whatever answers you're looking for, chip away slowly over time. Cult conscripts can keep coming back from their graves, so no matter what I do to that, it's not going to be ideal, countering it or shooting it. Another battling mystic. Alright, so... I mean, one of these ends up discarding the other. It's not going to play out how we want it to, no matter what. And I don't get to cast a spell here to go with the Figment, so let's just drop our 2/1 flyer, and that will be our unblockable threat we keep around now. Outrace our opponent, hit them for 2 a turn, and take 1 a turn on the crackback. Another land off the top. We find a shore up, which is a beautiful draw. I've got multiple ways to stop removal, so if they play a removal spell, we probably cast the shore up, so I can save the negate for if they have a really nice non-targeting instant or sorcery of some kind. Garna. That is going to have to get scattered. That's scary enough. If I don't scatter it, if it resolves and I lightning strike it, they're going to get a 2/2 zombie version of it, so let's scatter it. Take 2 from the Phoenix Chicks, and now the race is even. We will still win in the grand scheme of things thanks to a lightning strike. Well, I mean, at this point I bite the bullet and just cast another Battling Mystic so that we're winning the race. Don't get any card draw off of it, but now we hit for 4 a turn, close out this game a lot quicker. Tattered Apparition. Lightning strike that, then I don't shoot their face anymore. If I do that during my turn, I get unblockable damage in with Figment, which still kind of counts as shooting their face. Because it deals an additional 2 damage this turn. Not the full 3, but still definitely valuable. And now they are dead next turn to our shore up if we use that offensively. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 from the +1/+1. And because we have the negate in case they try to removal spell, we can just use it offensively and win. The only thing they could have is a creature that's a removal spell to win this game. Yeah, it would have to be an instant speed creature that works as removal for them to win, so... There's the concession. That's 7 damage, and we are now 3-0, heading into Game 4. Game 4 now. We're going to get an Amplifier and a Haunting Figment on the board to start beating down with. Playing against green-blue with a Floriferous Vine Wall, probably some Domain Soup. There's the red source, just a natural mountain. Just very unexpected. I think I go Figment here. Because it already attacks into the Vine Wall, even if I don't cast any instants. So I can go Figment into Amplifier, but if I go Amplifier into Figment, I don't get an attack in. Okay, I do not, especially drawing a Timely Interference. I was going to say I don't hate trading Figment into Gardener, but if I draw a Timely Interference, then... Timely Interference is just incredible against a 1/1 Death Toucher. It's so gross. Kill it and draw a card for 1 mana. Good opportunity to cast that. There's the Sojourner from our opponents. We can Geyser it, and then we kick an Amplifier next turn to deal with it again. These decks are so rude, for sure. Our opponent is on the all-basic land domain deck, by the way, but it's working fine for them. But you do not see that a lot. Sojourner's back. Put that thing back where it came from, or so help me. Our opponent is down to 15 now. Here comes Sojourner. You ever heard of the definition of insanity? I actually don't have any more bounce spells in this deck, so it'll stick around if it comes out again. But our opponent might not want to do it. They might want to play like a 3-drop and a 2-drop because they're just tired of it getting bounced. Which is quite funny. Deathbloom Gardener? Yeah! They literally just play a Gardener instead of it. And now I can just kill the Gardener. Thanks to them playing around that. And then I'll just have the Protect Negotiators to just counter it anyway. That is so nice for me. Played out really well. Depending on what they have for 2 mana. Because they do have 2 mana up by doing this. Looks like maybe just a Lightning Strike of their own. In which case this is fine. Actually, no, this is great if it's a Lightning Strike of their own. I totally forgot I have a Shore Up. This is devastating for them if they have Lightning Strike. Oh my god, look at this damage. They go to 2? Oh, I could have killed them if I also countered it with Protect the Negotiators. I missed lethal. I missed lethal, but I think we'll be fine. Yep, there's the concession from our opponent. That's actually a really cool interaction I didn't even think of. So we can Shore Up for the Hexproof so that that's not going to resolve. But then also, even though it's not going to resolve, we can counter it anyway. So I've cast another instant and I deal another 4 damage on this board, put them to -2. So we should have done that because they were tapped out. That was loose, but the deck is really nice and really streamlined. Our draws have been great and it's going to win again anyway. We're at 4-0 now, heading into game 5. All right, our opponent is on the play for game 5. Mana could be pretty awkward without the Mana Worker, because having to play off curve to the Grotto would be bad, but I am going to keep the hand regardless. Find a Timely Interference. What are we scrying to off the Grotto? Not a land, but a really strong card to kick. A bit greedy, but I'm going to keep that. There's a Splatter Goblin to start things off from our opponent, which is not going to kill a Mana Worker unless I block it. But just if it dies for some random reason, it's just -1/-1 to something. I guess I could Thrill of Possibility to try to guarantee land 3 next turn, but really it's top decking land 3 that would make the hand incredible. Because then I actually have the Mana Worker to get my white source for Protect the Negotiators. I guess we have to top deck exactly an island, so we gotta get real lucky here, but it's possible. Alright, we didn't hit it, so now we Thrill of Possibility. To find it, discard Micromancer, because if I draw Shore Up, then Micromancer's not going to be able to draw us a card anyway. And I'm doing this main phase, so if I draw a land, I can play it now. Instead of doing it during their turn, so I can hold up Protect for 1. Could try to Timely Interference to kill the Goblin without losing my Mana Worker. Probably fine. In worst case scenario here, I still draw a card and I lose the Mana Worker to some removal spell or trick. Alright, another Splatter Goblin. Hit land 4, which is beautiful. They're still on 3 mana, so Protect the Negotiators looks really good against 2/1s. I'm just going to hold up Protect the Negotiators here, despite being able to play 2 2-mana spells. The kicked 3-mana version of this card is going to be pretty incredible. And I can do that even if I lose Mana Worker. So if they want a combat trick to kill this thing with Rager, so be it. Alright, Cavalier, here we go. Protect the Negotiators. Now I have a 1/1 to block the Splatter Goblin without dying. Or without Mana Worker dying. Bones. That's a very aggressive use of bone splinters. I'll take it. Sure, they only traded one creature into my 1/3 and my token, but they traded 2 full cards worth of value, which is what you gotta be thinking of your spells as. They are full cards worth of value. So if you trade a combat trick into a creature, you didn't like get your opponent. Like you both spent a card there. That's just a reasonable trade. Cost a blue less to cast if your opponent casts 2 or more spells this turn. So if they try to cast a second spell, I can counter it for 1 and a blue. So I could just play one of these and hold up a counter. We've got multiple ways to bounce a resolved threat, so let's just play double Figment. If they resolve a threat, we'll bounce it. The only way this goes wrong is if they resolve a big non-creature. Alright, yeah, Barricade's fine. I can just bounce it. The question is, do I want to? Yeah, since we hit the 5th mana. Sure. I can do that while still adding more power to the board. Barricade's back. Now we can bounce and buff the amplifier. No, I don't want to actually kick it here. I can bounce and buff the amplifier at the same time. They could sack it in response, but then it's just gone forever, and I just got hard removal. Alright. I am very okay with this. They are down to 9. Could have hit them for 5 more damage, but that's still not lethal, so I'm just going to save the bellow so I can hold up my counterspell. Counter whatever they try to do here and then bellow them to death next turn. I mean, I guess. That does stop us from lethaling them, so sure. Tapped Conscript? That does not stop us from lethaling. Balmore's a sick draw thanks to the Crystal Grotto. Oh, what am I doing? Oh my god, why did I target that? I, for some reason, thought that Balmore gets haste and trample. It's just trample. I mean, this is still lethal on board, but it could have been so much more than lethal. Reinforcements. They can block Amplifier, 2 damage from that, still take 6, 7, 8. I'm 1 damage off because I targeted Balmore. For some reason, just auto thought it would get haste, but it doesn't. That was very dumb of me. I have no idea why I did that. I guess it might have just been instinctually playing in a way to where, like, if they have a removal spell, they don't counter my thing, but it doesn't matter if they counter my thing. I still get all the triggers that buff everybody. So yeah, that was really loose. That was egregiously loose, honestly. Well, let's just... Alright. Really loose gameplay today. I'm glad our deck is so good, because I don't think my gameplay has earned this win rate here, where we are 5-0 heading into game number 6. Here we are on the play for game 6. I cannot keep this hand without a blue source. My red card is an even card draw. Yeah, we have to ditch it. We have a Mana Worker and a Crystal Grotto, so I think we keep this one and ditch the Negate as the latest gameplay. Maybe we ditch the Mana Worker, go on the Infantry, but I don't think so. Need another land to cast Infantry if I don't have Mana Worker in here. Well, there's the other land, but I really need red, ideally, in case the Mana Worker gets popped by some kind of removal. Playing against a red-white deck, one of the most aggro decks in the format, and now I get to drop an Infantry holding up Shore Up, which is exactly what you want to be able to do. That is very, very nice. Alright, well, red-white Nothing on the board by turn 3 is not what you expect to see. Red-white, the most, like, go wide aggro deck. They spit out a bunch of tokens and buff their whole board. Do some crazy stuff from there. No thanks. We will shore up the infantry here. Save it from the blast. And that was 3 damage, because 2 plus 1, so if I bellowed, it wouldn't have had enough toughness to survive. That's why we go for the shore up over the bellow. Now just bellow wherever they block. Or bellow to scry and get a bunch of extra damage here. Scry out of that land. Could definitely be flooding here, but they are down to 5. So we don't need much else to find the kill. That mulligan might be our death sentence here. We would have had one more spell in hand, which is pivotal. Literally casting one more spell would have killed them that turn. Well, no, it would have put them to 2. If it was another bellow, it would have killed them. If it was a lightning strike, yeah, there's several spells it could have been that would have just killed our opponent if we didn't have the mulligan. Luckily, our attacks are good against a 2-1 flyer, so we still grind in some damage here. They go down to 3. They're dead to a lightning strike if they don't have more life gain off cards like their Mesa Cavalier. Yeah, I mean, this is really a game where if we lose, it is just like a 1 card from lethal kind of thing. If we just had that other card to not have the mulligan, it would have definitely been enough. With our opponent at 3 life now, any spell, having to put another counter on board and buffed either our Balmor or our other thing. They do have enough power on board now to kill the infantry, so we can't attack. They just block with everybody. Faith Bonder for 1/3 Vigilance and List. I could scatter just because I have an infantry on board. And it does buff the Protector to get more damage, and yeah. Let's get our counter. Send in the Protector for 2 rather than 3, thanks to the counter. Another counter spell. One more counter spell puts infantry big enough that they can't kill it by blocking with everybody. So if they cast anything, infantry's big enough now. Drawing really hot off the top with those 2 counters in a row. They can't afford to attack with Protector now. So they attack with Cavalier instead. I mean, even attacking with Cavalier, they don't have enough power to kill infantry. They have 5 power on board. Okay. And I draw dead now, but send in. Can I send in with both here? How do they kill Mana Worker? 3 1/1s on it, then they put infantry there and take 2 and go to 1. Or they do a 2/3 and a 1/1 there, 2 1/1s there, take 3 and die. Okay, they only kill Mana Worker if they chump with Protector and go to 1, so I think we attack both. That's not the math you want it to be. All right. We'll wipe out most of the board. They draw land off the top. And that is 6-0, running super, super hot there. Almost got punished by the mulligan into the loss there. Several turns where it was looking just 1 card off a lethal. But we drew a couple counter spells in a row to just counter their next 2 cards, get enough counters onto that infantry to get those attacks in. And that puts us to 6-0, undefeated, heading into the final boss with 3 shots at victory here. And now we're playing against Mythic number 17, so we got to do some good stuff. Good stuff in this game if we want to find the victory. And we've got a solid start with a Haunting Figment turn 2 and an Espionage turn 3. The one aspect, again, I'm not much of a fan of is we are on the draw and not on the play. So we will start a little slower, start a little bit behind here, which is a big deal with tempo and aggro and honestly just kind of every deck. Our opponent is on a domain pile, which I think we have a pretty solid matchup against. I don't think this hand is actually that crazy against domain piles, but our deck in general should be pretty good for this. They are getting a great amount of ramp going, which is scary because we have no counters in the opening hand. So I can impulse into any one drop, but I have no one drop counters, so we just espionage looking for counter spells and bounce spells as quickly as possible. There's a Protect the Negotiators to counter unless they pay 1, but I don't have the white source here. So we just hope they try to greed out like a 6-drop next turn. Oh my lord, a 7-drop, never mind. Double Weather Seed Treaty with full domain off that island. Everything they cast having full domain now is going to be terrifying. And I can cast a Balmor, hold up a Protect the Negotiators now. Which means I don't get to attack into the Sapperling here, or I trade down. What are the odds I can counter something unless they pay 2? They're not terrible, but they're certainly not great. Maybe it is a turn for a Timely Interference on a 1/1 if they block. And if they don't block, we just deal damage. Tribute to Urborg. Protect the Negotiators that, deal 3 damage here. They're going to be using Weather Seed Treaty to hit me for 6 with Trample next turn. I think I just allow it. Figment's not that good. I mean, now they're 100% confident we have a counter spell, or a shore up at least. But I think we just let that die to counter a better spell from the domain deck potentially. But now it has to be something that costs all of their mana, which feels unlikely to work, but we'll see. Double Weather Seed Treaty is just such a nonsense start. Yep, can't counter Nihil. Okay. Can counter Sojourner. It works out fine. Got the Amplifier to bounce the Nihil. Just slow them down. But take a lot from these Sapperlings. But then that's all they've got now, just a Nihil. We can try to tempo them enough with Impulse and Interference, trying to draw into a way to bounce Nihil again. Or if I just cast enough spells, like I can force the 2/4 to block my Balmor if I can make Balmor 4 power for the turn. Well, there's a free kill on a Sapperling. Go down to 8. They've got 1 card in hand. If I kick a Timely Interference, I have 3 more mana to cast 2 spells with to make Balmor big enough, so I have to Impulse into like Shore Up for it to work. Let's just Impulse and see what we get, I guess, before I do anything else. Okay, no Shore Up. Can Micromancer to have the Shore Up for later, I suppose. I don't hate that. If I Timely Interference, we don't even kill the Aeronaut. Unless I Timely Interference plus Lightning Strike. So I think they just don't block here, and then they're going to go for the hit on me. Actually, wait, no, I can force Nihil to block the 4/2. What am I on about? Yeah, it has to block, so if I don't attack with Balmor, then I can kill the Aeronaut. And trample over a little bit. Okay, so we do that. Force the block. It's going to block Amplifier. They could double block to kill Amplifier if they really want, but I don't think they do, yeah. Get trampled over. We get to keep the Amplifier, but they keep the Rager. Scout the Wilderness, some lands, and some 1/1s. Micromancer just to have a shore up is going to be pretty nice. Costs 5 mana total for that. I can spend 2 on Infantry, 4 on Micromancer, and 1 on shore up. Just having a shore up here is a huge deal. And we're just firmly in the lead now. Just completely turned this game around. Now we're chipping at them for damage, and we have protection for any of our creatures that they try to remove, and we can lightning strike them next turn for a large amount of damage. Ooh, Bone Rattle can swap that around real quick. That card is insane. A 4/4 that reanimates something that costs 5 or less for free. Okay, here's the Impulse. Now we just make the whole board massive trample nonsense off of Balmor and try to get lethal off of all these creatures getting buffed. I could take Urtai's Scorn and go for a counter on my own card to give my whole board another +1/+0 because it's funny. I do have exactly enough mana, right, to like lightning strike their face and then shore up and counter my shore up to find lethal. Oh no, I needed triple blue. Auto Tapper destroyed me. Snap. I needed to cast Lightning Strike for double red. Ugh. I mean, this is still probably lethal, right? 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 toughness against 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, plus 7, 8, 9, 10, 15. But yeah, I mean, that's an insane amount of damage. All with trample. It's definitely lethal after casting a shore up. I don't know if it is before. I'll do the math based on their blocks. And if it is before casting a shore up, I'll just hold up Urtai's Scorn. It could have been so much better, though, if I had tapped my lands better. Okay, so right now I deal 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 is not lethal. I mean, I do this on the smallest creature, which is Balmor. So if they removal spell, I still hit for 1,000,000. Okay. I was real scared there early. They like set up the perfect mana, get an IL down for potential card draw. The Weatherseed Treaty hit for 1,000,000, got some Saprolings, did its work. But we just turned things around with drawing into the Balmor and getting insane amounts of extra damage in there, all with trample, for the crisp, clean 7-0 run with this blue-red tempo deck. Once again, I just can't stress enough how nice it is to go back to Dominaria United. I think it just really is quite cool how much different stuff you can do with the format. I think if you check out the thumbnails of some of the old Dominaria United drafts, looking at some of the quick drafts, you can see a lot of different strategies that I've done that have managed to play pretty well. I know red-white aggro was one of the stronger decks in the format. I didn't do that too often, but you can see I do a lot of the 5-color domain splashy kind of decks. I played a blue-white tempo control deck that got a 7-win run, and I've done multiple blue-red tempo aggro decks that have gotten 7-win runs. So really, really cool the kind of things you can do in this set. I think I've done a blue-black control kind of deck that got a 7-win as well. That was a fun archetype too, with the Tolarian Terrors to be really cheap, really big threats in the late game, and you just play a bunch of cheap, efficient black removal spells to end up with all those instant sorceries in your grave. There's just a lot of really cool archetypes in the format, and all of them are solidly viable. Honestly, I think from best to least, my favorite archetypes in this format: green-based domain, whatever color pairs that is, domain soup, 3 to 5 colors. That's my favorite. Second favorite, blue-red tempo. Third favorite, I think, blue-white tempo, more on the controlling end, was pretty good. Blue-black control was also pretty fun. That could do some things. Red-white aggro was great. Black-white aristocrats, where you made a bunch of tokens and then sacked them for good value, was good. Yeah, I mean, that's like 5, 6 archetypes that are all kind of different and pretty strong. I think one of the things that does hold back the set in terms of the number of archetypes available, I mean, it's more than the majority of formats, but one of the things that holds it back is there isn't really like a green-red deck or a green-black deck or a green-blue deck or even a green-white deck, because every single one of those should probably just be playing more than 2 colors and just turn into the domain soup deck. Basically, every green deck should turn to some extent into a domain soup deck. Like if you're focused on mainly green-red, you're still playing a bunch of domain stuff to splash in good bombs, and you're just going for green-red domain aggro, where you use like the root wallas to get really big, you use the Gaia's growths to buff your board and get extra damage in. So green-red is like domain aggro, green-blue is like domain, I don't want to say ramp because there's not a lot of ramp in the format, but domain like land-focused stuff with the Tachiovas as the top end. Kind of like domain value, because you have all the impulses and card draw spells that blue gives you while having Tachiova in the endgame. Green-black is domain graveyard recursion stuff, just domain grindiness. But they all kind of mesh together where you're going to be some combination of all of those. So that is one thing that sort of feels like it lowers the amount of archetypes available, but there's so many solid decks in the format, and they're all pretty distinct and pretty powerful. It was a really cool set, and the farther away we get from it, the more sets that come out, the more I come to appreciate that. I don't think I was that high on it or that excited about it the first time around playing it, but just every time it comes back, it's always a joy, always an absolute pleasure. And that is going to end today's draft at the full prizes of 950 gems and 2 Dominaria United packs. But that is going to end today's video. As always, I'd like to thank my patrons and YouTube members for their support, as well as you for watching the video. If you enjoyed this video and are interested in seeing more, you can always like, comment, and subscribe to tell the YouTube algorithm to send you some more in your recommended feed. If you'd like to catch me live, you can check out the Twitch channel in the link in the description below, and if you'd like to support the channel directly, you can check out the Patreon link in the description below. But other than that, as always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again soon for some more Magic Arena.